was the first car to feature anti-lock brakes, and it was built almost entirely by hand. This is the retro factory story of the Mercedes S-Class W116, crafted in 1970s Sindelfingen, Germany. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class was introduced in 1972, but its story began years earlier. In the late 1960s, Mercedes engineers started designing a car that would set new standards for safety, performance, and comfort. It wasn't just a regular upgrade. The W116 was a fresh idea, a new kind of sedan that would change how cars were made and how they were driven. The lead designer, Friedrich Geiger, wanted something bold and smart. The body shape was widened and lengthened to give it presence on the road, but looks were only part of the plan. The real focus was safety. Mercedes added features that had never been used in production cars before, like crumble zones and a reinforced passenger cell. These designs helped protect people inside during a crash. It even laid the groundwork for the first anti-lock braking system, aka ABS. Everything started in the Sindelfingen plant, one of the most famous car factories in all of Europe. Here, engineering teams worked side by side with designers. They took ideas from clay models and wind tunnel tests and made them real. The plan wasn't just to build a car that looked good, it had to work perfectly and be safe for every road. The body of each car began as a flat steel sheet. These heavy coils of steel arrived by train. The sheets were unrolled and sent straight into massive hydraulic presses. Some of these presses weighed more than 100 tons. They were used to shape body panels, including doors, hoods, fenders, and roofs, all within seconds. Each panel had to be accurate down to the millimeter. From there, the panels moved to the body shop. Here, workers and early welding robots joined everything together. The 116 had what's called a unibody design. This meant the frame and body were welded into one solid piece. It made the car safer and stronger. Side panels were connected to floor pans. Roofs were joined to pillars. Support beams were added in just the right places to protect against impacts. Even though machines were used, much of the work still depended on people. Workers checked door gaps by eye, aligned panels with simple tools, and smoothed out weld seams by hand. Mercedes added something special to this assembly line: quality control at every step. If a part didn't meet the company's strict standards, it was pulled aside and fixed. The body might be strong, but every car needs a beating heart. And in the next part of the factory, Mercedes built engines not just for power, but for perfection. At the center of the 116 was its engine. Some models used the smooth M110 inline 6, others had the loud and powerful M100 V8, especially in the 450 SEL 6.9 version. These engines weren't just made to move, they were made to last. The engines started at another Mercedes facility in Interturkheim, where new blocks of cast iron and aluminum alloy were created. These rough blocks were then shipped to Sindelfingen. There, they entered the engine hall, one of the most precise parts of the entire factory. Inside, trained technicians built the engines by hand. Every crankshaft, piston, and camshaft had to be installed just right. Torque tools were used to make sure bolts were tightened to exact levels. Valve timing was checked with careful measurements to make sure everything opened and closed perfectly. Engines were cold tested before ever being started. This means fluid was pushed through them to check oil pressure, airflow, and compression, all without turning the ignition. Some parts were even inspected using magnetic particle testing. This allowed workers to find cracks too small for the human eye. With the engine complete and the body ready, it was time for one of the most detailed stages in the entire process: painting. Now the raw steel body moved into the paint shop. This wasn't just about looks. The paint had to protect the car from rust, weather, and time. The first step was the KTL bath, or cataphoretic electro deposition. The body was dipped in an electrically charged tank that coated every inch inside and out with a rust-fighting primer. After the bath, the body went into a curing oven. This locked the primer into place using heat. And then came sanding. Workers used fine grit materials to smooth out the surfaces by hand. This took a lot of time and patience, but it made sure the paint would stick evenly. Robots helped spray the base coat, especially starting in the late 1970s, but humans still did the final layers and custom finishes. Multiple coats were applied: primer, color, and clear lacquer. Each coat was baked separately. This process gave the 116 its deep shine. Popular colors included astral silver, anthracite gray, and Milan brown. Each was carefully mixed to get the right look. Now the car had color and protection, but it still needed to feel like a Mercedes. And that feeling came from what happened next: the interior. The interior of the W116 was about more than comfort. It was about making the driver feel in control, calm, and cared for. Before any seats or trim were added, the inside was filled with soundproofing. Foam pads, thick mats, and special sheets were placed on the floor, doors, and under the hood. The idea was to block outside noise and create what engineers called acoustic purity. Next came the wiring. Teams carefully clipped wires in place for everything from dashboard lights to rear window defrosters. Then the dashboard itself was installed. It included real wood, soft plastics, and chrome details. Each part was hand-fitted to avoid rattles and gaps. Radios, climate controls, and gauges were added next. Then came the seats, offered in velour or real leather. These seats had a special spring system that adjusted to the rider's weight. They were designed for long-distance travel and comfort. First, the front seats were installed, then the rear bench. After that, door panels, carpets, sun visors, and center consoles completed the space. Once the interior was done, the car went through the marriage, the moment when the engine and suspension were joined with the body. The engine and subframe were lifted into place with hydraulic tools. The suspension system, including the rear semi-trailing arms, gave the 116 its famous stability. Brakes, drive shafts, fuel lines, and the exhaust system were all added. Tires were inflated, balanced, and fitted. By now, the car looked complete, but Mercedes wasn't finished yet. The last hull in the factory focused on details. Bumpers were added and aligned. Chrome trim was checked. Every door was opened and closed multiple times. It had to make the famous Mercedes thunk, a deep, solid sound. Glass was installed with care. Lights and wipers were tested. Fluids were filled. Then the final electronics check confirmed that every light, switch, and window worked perfectly. Only after all of this did the car move to quality checking. At Mercedes, quality control wasn't a final step. It was part of the company's promise. Every 116 was inspected under lights. Doors were tested. Engines were run on a rolling road. The car was driven on a test track, through corners, braking zones, and even high-speed sprints. Only when the car passed every test did it receive a special stamp under the hood. Then it was cleaned, wrapped, and shipped by train or cargo ship around the world. Some models were sent by air to VIP buyers. Others arrived at dealerships with their dashboards already in the buyer's language. The 116 didn't just raise the bar for Mercedes, it helped define what the world expects from a luxury car.